What's up, guys? So, as you guys have probably picked up, there's a 30% off discount going on with the recharge. If you're wondering what the heck is that, well, you know these diamonds up here at the top? Yeah, so if you do a recharge, then you're going to get a certain percentage of that back. Obviously, if you're using the Dakanoth code, you're also going to get some money back with Aptoid, so there's that too. Again, watch the end of the video if you want to learn how to take advantage of that. But otherwise, yeah, so I've basically got an Eternal set gear now, and I've got a lot of pal crit. Here's what I've come to discover with the build so far. Alright, so comparing this to what you would normally get with, like, say, Plume Monarch, right? The biggest issue I come to find with this is that you've got to get a lot of crit damage for your pal. Yeah, obviously you can play with combo too, right? I mean, there's combo damage here too you can use. But you've got the crit itself, right? And Panda is going to be huge in crit. You're going to get a stupid amount of damage with the Panda. So you're looking at, like, you can see kind of where the general theme here is that not all pals are made equal, but basically you can get anywhere between 50 and 60% crit. And then if you increase that crit damage up quite a crazy amount, you're going to do a fair bit of damage. And so then if you take that in tandem with, let's say, you got to your enchants and you got to get pal damage. Now, obviously, Furious Scale is not like the best choice here. Like, you would want to get the common foe and get 10% pal damage. I mean, if anything, if I struggle doing anything, it's the fact that basically in order to really make this build shine, you really got to have a very substantial amount into basically Excellent Companion, because that's where you're going to get a fair bit of pal damage. There's a couple of different other, like not so known places where you can find yourself getting stats. I mean, you'll notice that, like, generally speaking, with a lot of these, every once in a while, you'll come across some that give you like this, pal crit damage. Like, Blue Ox is going to be a substantial big bonus to this type of class. But I point this out because, like, between the Blue Ox and the Hot Wheels, these are like the two that really are specific to PAL classes right now as far as mounts are concerned. Now, you guys have probably heard about what I've said about the Skyward Blaze, which is that right now this is probably one of the better mounts that I've seen, just because you're basically going to get a stupid amount of damage applied from your basic attack, which, comparing it to, like, say, the Holy Dragon, all right, where this is only going to kick off a stack of guard every, 3 stacks of guard every 11 seconds. Each stack is going to be 100% defense, but you're going to lose a stack every second, but you're going to deal 2,000 skill damage, current, combo, and counter at the end of the guard. So, basically you're giving yourself like a substantial amount of damage at the trade-off of, basically get a lot of defense out of it. Where this, every 10 seconds, you're going to burn the targets and deal 600% current basic attack AoE damage. Okay, and then you're going to deal a 40% increase of damage done to them on top of that, plus it stacks up to 3 times. So, I mean, that's like a potential situation of 120%, on top of what you've already done. Plus, you get an additional 4% attack, defense, and damage resistance until the battle ends, which also stacks 3 times. So you could conceivably have 12% attack, defense, and damage resistance. So comparing that to, like, a lot of these other, as far as like pieces go, I mean, there are some items out there that, they trigger off of like how much HP you get or how much how many seconds you're alive. And they're comparable by 2 to 3% difference, really, in a lot of cases. But you have to lose health in order to really have them kick in. So I know Skyward Blaze is going to be really good, but that's also $1,000, which I'm sure most of you probably already know. I mean, it's like a crazy amount just to get anywhere near it. Now, I did have some people ask me about the Trapped Wrath, and I mean, as far as the Trapped Wrath goes, like, just like looking at, your Adaptive Slime, this is like one of those back accessories that would pair well with Adaptive Slime. because you're just giving yourself a lot of damage. As you lose health, you get stronger. I mean, basically, that's what that's for, And so, I mean, how you go about that is really up to you. However, obviously, with the clues, 3 and 4 have been pretty obvious to find. I mean, one was at the mine, and the other one, like, you're gonna find these relatively quickly. I don't think you're gonna have any problem figuring out 3 and 4. um, if you're asking, shroom could be chilling by the water. It's not hard to find. It's really easy to find that. Um, because you're not gonna have any trouble. Let me put it that way. The main thing, because like again, you'll find it around here. But the main point I'm trying to get at to you here is with the event and everything that's been going on. There have been some people that have played like a Prophet build, and they've been playing Warrior, and they've been playing Plume Monarch, and now you've got some people that are interested in this Beast Tamer class. And so far, I mean, my overall experience with it is it doing more damage than if I was a Plume Monarch? And I tell you, probably not. Like, the damage is kind of negligible in that, I'm still tweaking every so often certain settings, because really what you end up having to do a lot of in order to really do a stupid amount of damage is you got to get your PAL damage up a lot. And if you've ever gone around and you just hop into arena, I've always told you guys that, if you want to get far ahead, you got to save and basically get yourself enough glory so that you can get a red soul selection too and get your fusions. But obviously if you're just starting out, and I stress this, you really should probably get awakening crystals instead, because you can use those to basically upgrade and get to awaken status. And only then do you want to start doing fusions, at least in my opinion. Now, that said, yeah, I mean, if I take, for example, let's say we look at somebody that's playing like a Warbringer, for example. I honestly find comparing is usually the easiest way to just kind of determine like where, if let's say we want to look into its stat, you just click on the eye and then it'll tell you all the different places. Like partner is a PAL. It's a little mysterious in the way that they phrase some of this. Now the mount you'll notice is 97 and his is 122. There's a fair bit of PAL damage coming in from a mount, and I'm kind of wondering where that's coming from, because we'd have to go, looking to go figure that part of it out. The other thing is, you can see, like right now I don't have any soul damage increasing there, and that's partly because he's a warrior build, and he's wanting it for the counter damage. But what I'm wanting it for is actually for the PAL damage. Weirdly enough, I think if you were to really go heavy into Beast Tamer, I think you're going to want to use counter damage. It's a little bit different than Plume, because I feel like they kind of synergize really well if you've used Counter Strike along, so basically as you're soaking up damage, your PAL damage is doing basically the rest for you. That's what I'm ultimately thinking is what I need to tweak, so I'm making the adjustments as needed, but it's something that takes a lot of time to kind of, you got to get to a point where you've actually do enough Counter Strike damage for that actually to occur. And on top of that, you've got to get, like the back accessory, I'm getting 200% on. I'm getting 600 and some odd percent from the enchant. So there's a little over 800% there. The statue's giving me about 200%. So a lot of the extra added stats, if there's going to be any other place, it's actually going to be kind of, tricky, because, just like anything, you've got to get a substantial amount of that damage in those places. On top of your final attack being that you probably have to invest a fair bit into global attack for it to really kind of be worthwhile. So for that reason, it's been kind of, it's tricky. Like I'm not really so sure if there's a viable path with this particular build. But this is part of the reason why I'm thinking Counter-Strike might be pretty helpful, and that's going back to, how Beast Tamer, it benefits you basically as you're losing health. And so in the same way that I think this class should probably operate, what I probably need to do, and I've been using like the Magic Carpet mount for a while, and you guys have always asked me like, well, is that good for Plume Monarch? Is it good for this? It's really more intended for profit, I think, and part of the reason why is because you're casting 6 skills and then you're going to get a random skill kicked off. I just thought it was kind of cool because you can basically randomly proc a random skill. And sometimes that skill is useful, sometimes it's not. But it adds an RNG factor to it that no other mount in the game does. That I think is really darn cool because you can do a stupid amount of damage or not a lot at all, just based on one thing. So, that said, I mean, if there's anything I tweak and change in the foreseeable future, I'm right now I'm just kind of saving, but I haven't really made my mind up yet. But like if you go over into the rush shop, I've got 29 or so, and I could conceivably get Adaptive Slime right now if I wanted to, or I could grab, say, like the Hot Wheels and pick those. This is also the same place where you get Cloud Drifter, which, FYI, if you're a prophet, you're going to want a lot of skill crit. And then, between the amount of skill damage you're doing, then you kind of start to want, you'll either have a ton of stun, or you'll either do that, or you'll do a ton of regen. Something else that I feel like a lot of people probably know, but don't really fully understand it, is that evasion is what you need for PvE and not so much for PvP. The only reason why I ever really dumped a stupid amount into evasion is because it's really helpful in PvE, because it's basically going to block basic attack hits. It doesn't block combo or counter, or skill damage for that matter. So you kind of have to outweigh what's more important for you, but that's just something that's helpful to know when playing the game. But not naturally, I don't know, some people may notice that there is the floral panda, and again, just like any of the other pandas, the base regen is kind of confusing, I've noticed, for some people, and they were kind of like, well, what the heck is base regen? Well, if you go over and you look at, like, say, like a while back we had the Pepe event, and you get something called healing. It's not the same as like that. Like, that's the part that may confuse people, is they're looking at healing and then there's base regen. If you look at, like, say, the Kung Fu Master, there's HP regen. The phrasing of base regen as opposed to like HP regen is a little confusing. And I'll admit, by looking at that, at least at a glance, you look at the stats page and you're like, well, what the heck is base regen? Could that be, what is it? And I obviously regeneration, I think, is what it implies, and that's a little different from healing, and that, it's not the percent of health that you're getting back, it's the rate at which you get it back, I guess, if that makes sense. Which is kind of confusing, I guess, but it's basically not the attribute that increases the total amount you receive, but the likelihood that you will have it be received, if that makes sense. Which, yeah, I don't know. It's very easy to confuse people. I kind of wish they would phrase the descriptions better, because it kind of confuses even everyday people, which, to be honest with you, I really can't say I blame them. Anyway, I've been playing the Supreme Spirit for a while, though, and I like what I've come up with so far. However, I am going to eventually check out the Beastmaster and kind of start tweaking the settings in here. You'll notice that where this one differs is that it increases damage multiplier by 20%. Pals deal 4% more damage for every 10% missing HP. Your crit rate is up by 25%. Your base attack speed is up by 0.1, and you ignore evasion. And obviously you get the extra pal slot just like you do in the other class. The biggest difference, obviously, is that, where in Beastmaster you kind of benefit from, you're basically going to go after people that are avoiding evasion. So it benefits a lot in that your targets are going to try and evade from you, and you're going to do a ton of DPS on them. But it's AoE damage that lasts for 8 seconds as you increase the amount of damage done to them by 40%. So in a way, when you compare, like, the Wilting Souls, which does 10k AoE damage, increases spell damage received by 40%, it's basically the same thing. The only difference is this part here, where a 40% chance will deal extra damage equal to 1% of the target's max HP, right? Whereas, like, if you look at Beastmaster, rather than that, you're gonna get pals ignoring enemy evasion for 10 seconds. A little different, but completely different purpose in terms of what you know, they're ultimately aiming to achieve. Now, obviously, like this one's the most convoluted of the bunch because you can increase your PAL crit rate and you can increase the likelihood that you're gonna, you know, say hit a certain. But more important is the PAL deploy effect being up by 20%, which can produce some really interesting results because certain deploy effects are going to be more beneficial than others. Being that, you know, if let's say you want to extend your stun duration, your combo, you know, even how much health you get. The nice thing is, like, right now I haven't been playing around with any of those yet. I've just been looking purely at, you know, what can I do just from a PAL damage standpoint. But to be quite honest with you, it wouldn't take a whole lot to just change and adjust this and mass modify it to, say, increase combo damage, for example, and make it more like a plume build, or an amplifier to a plume build, that is. It wouldn't take a lot to modify. In fact, I can even show you. So, like, for example, like right now, I'm using set 1 in my PvP build. And to kind of make it complement, maybe, you know, oh, hold on. Ugh. Try not to get too carried away here. I gotta make sure I adjust the right set. So we'll move this over there, like so. And then all we'll do is basically, oh, I don't know, I guess we've already got a fair bit going into those. I would say probably Hydra Sprite might be our best choice there. And then I'm already getting a fair bit of combos, so that's probably going to be okay. All we have to do really is just go in here, and we just need to adjust the... and that's maybe the only thing I don't like about this, is that, like, you got to go back here to double check and see what effects you're applying. But yeah, I've got PAL combo and PAL crit, and then for current effects, global and attack speed, which is fine. And now with that all adjusted, yeah, and now you're looking at like 51k for power. The only thing I would do different is, rather than have set 1 talents, let me set it to what I was using when I was in... Gotta figure out which one I was using. Nope, that ain't it. It's one of these builds. I just gotta figure out which one it is. Okay, I think it was this one, so we'll just switch it to this. It's a slight change, right? But the role that this plays is slightly different, because now we're not trying to... We're still acting kind of like a plume. And you can see that, well, see, like, I just can't adjust it for the life of me. But, I mean, that's the cool thing about the versatility of this class, is that you can just, you know, if you already have a combo Plume Monarch build, then you can amplify it and kind of play around with it and see how it works. And you can kind of adjust as necessary. I'm still working on my avians, too, to kind of get things going. But if there's anything I really got to work on, it's my souls. But needless to say, guys, I hopefully explained that well enough for you guys so you can kind of get your head wrapped around it. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.